people think that there's not evil in this world, I looked at that specific example and I can tell you there is real evil in the world. I just like doing hard things and challenging myself. Education through experience. The impact part is being able to share that, whether it's through my art, raising my sons, the leadership I have with my family, co-workers. This is what dedication looks like. Waking up every day, practicing something you're passionate about, using it as a platform or a voice to express for an underserved group of people.
Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Aaron Hale. This is Point of Impact. Today, we've got an incredible guest, and one of my good friends, an EOD brother, is retired Gunnery Sergeant Tim Colomer. I tell you what, when it comes to figuring things out, determination and drive, there's really no better example. As men, we're builders, we're doers, we're fixers. But what happens when you got to fix yourself? Same thing you do when it's anything else. You keep trying until you find what works. Going from Marine EOD tech to I don't like saying wounded warrior. I like re-engineered or recalibrated carnivore, re-engineered expert.
I'm good with that.
But Tim's figured it out, and he's finding a little peace, a little joy, and a little popularity and success through the canvas and a paintbrush. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Tim.
Man,
glad to have you.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? I think we might have scheduled this show 3 or 4 times, but getting pulled in so many directions as you and I seem to be.
I know. I'm such a diva.
It's, between the award shows and public appearances in your podcast, I've been looking forward to it, man. I really have. This has been you and I talk on a pretty consistent, regular basis anyway, just as friends. But I was really looking forward to doing this with you today.
Well, tell me how far back do we go? When did we first meet?
I think it was right around 2010 or 2011. Our friend Leon Beck is a beer brewer and a Navy guy, and he always had folks out to his house to do a special brew for the EOD Warrior Foundation, and it was all guys that have been blown up, and he called it Blasted Ale, which was an apropos name. But I think that was the first time we met. And then shortly, not too long after that, we went on a race together, the Ski to Sea race. That was the first time we went out and did an event.
That was hilarious. So it must have been 2011 because that was when I was blown up. Maybe even early 2012 because I was hit in December of 2011. So,
okay.
And then Ski to Sea, that was 2013. That was hilarious. Adam Pop and I were in the canoe, and who would have thought that a guy with one leg would have balance issues in a canoe? And we toppled over and lived with 36-degree glacial melt river. That was fun.
I didn't even consider how cold that water was in that race. So this is a relay race, folks. There's, I think, 8 or 9 components to the race. And the very last one is the canoe that Aaron's talking about. But I think one of the first ones was a run. And it's literally, you start at the top of a mountain and you end down in the bay with your team. And you run down the mountain. So it was downhill the whole time, which I found to be quite helpful, to be honest with you. I'm like a big boulder. Once you push me down a hill, you're not going to stop me. But it's running down a hill, and I had some serious chafing issues going on. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was kind of an older town. So there was like a general store that was there, and it was very old timey, like Barney Fife, Mayberry general store. And I asked the lady behind the counter, who was probably the only employee that worked there, if they had anything that I could use to put on put on a rash like that to kind of soothe it. And she gave me menthol. She gave me a mentholated skin rub. Dude, that was like putting fire on fire. And now I remember how cold that water was because there was a little stream nearby that as soon as I put that on my rash in between my legs, I jumped in the stream and I must have looked. You probably saw smoke coming out from in between my legs, just blasting off steam. That was the most relief I've ever had. Dude, it was quite a day. It was a lot of fun, that race.
Man, why didn't she could have just handed you like bear spray or something, you know, try the like vapor rub. Gosh. And that stuff doesn't just rinse off.
No.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's oil based. And what I didn't realize was as soon as I jumped in the water, my pores closed and like held onto it for the rest of the day. It was there's a reason why I drank a lot of beer after that event. I would
have gone straight to like the pantry items. Give me some butter, give me some Crisco. I don't know. Just smear some stuff in there. But being a runner, no stranger to the chafe. I found diaper cream.
No kidding.
Good, very handy.
There's an old product that was invented for surfers a long time ago. This is when I was a kid, and it was for a wetsuit rash, which is really similar, but wetsuits are a little bit more abrasive because you get the salt and the sand in there. And it was, I think it was body butter or something along those lines. They still make it. You'll find it in the tropics and, in California and stuff. But I like that stuff for running. That stuff is the bomb.
Good to know. Just in case I'm running on the coastline or something.
There you go, brother.
So, where are you from?
Yeah, I was born in Illinois, and my dad was a police officer in Chicago in one of the harder areas for I think the better part of 10 or 11 years, right around there. He took a call. And went off a bridge, injured himself pretty badly, retired from the police department. And not too long after that, we went on a cruise. My family did on a family vacation down in Florida. And as soon as he saw Florida and got to experience Orlando and that area, he said, screw Chicago, screw the city, screw the snow. More importantly, we moved to Florida in like a neck breaking speed. I think we were there in February, and we're moved to Orlando by April. So it was like, sell the house, pack the crap. We're moving to Florida. So a little bit of half and half, Florida and Chicago, I could claim.
I can still hear the Chicago in your voice. It's, how'd you find your way to the Marines?
I have a very, very specific answer to that. And it's not out of, it wasn't out of patriotism. It wasn't out of me wanting to serve. It wasn't for the traditional reasons. My senior year in high school, I took a senior trip and went to Costa Rica, and I fell in love with traveling. And I knew that if I joined the military, I'd have an opportunity to travel. But I have also really enjoyed throughout my entire life. I just like doing hard things and challenging myself and talking to family members, my dad specifically, a couple of people that have been in the military. They said, if you really want to challenge yourself and do something hard, then you're going to join the Marines. And that's what I did. It was also kind of based. There's an old TV commercial where this guy is riding a horse. He's dressed in the Marine Corps dress blues, and he's riding a horse on this chessboard. This was late 80s, like early 90s. And he's like destroying all of these chess pieces with a sword. And it didn't say anything about college, didn't say anything about money, didn't say anything about benefits. The point of the commercial was, you could be a badass on a horse killing chess pieces. I mean, it's just like, go out and do the hard thing and serve. And that really resonated with me. I don't know why that one commercial did, but that was probably one of the driving factors to me joining the Marine Corps. Was just their campaign and marketing strategy.
the Marines have the best marketing. I mean, the lava monster. Do you remember that?
I do.
That was, I mean, you slay the lava monster, and all of a sudden, you get clad in this awesome uniform. You know, that was incredible. And then they're the only ones that were like, you could try to join, but we don't recruit. You know,
Right.
we're looking for a few good men, but so everybody else is like, hey, come join us, and we're like, and the Marines are, yeah, maybe we'll take you. And I mean, that was the best thing. It was like the whole scarcity mindset. Everybody else will definitely take you if you walk into a recruiter's office. The Marines, they have a higher set of standards. I do know that EOD it's not a pipeline program for the Marines. Like the other branches, I think it's all the other branches. You can join straight into, you can come right into the military as an E1 recruit and get trained up in your particular branch and then go to EOD school. The Marines, you got to be a sergeant.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a couple different, a little bit of differences in the way that the Marine Corps does it. Because the school is so expensive and the Marine Corps is relatively cheap, we don't have a big budget. The Marine Corps waits for somebody to hit a certain rank. It was sergeant at the time, and that was because they brought with them a level of maturity. They got, hopefully they went through the, partying stages. They're a little bit more focused and disciplined in their career, and that's kind of why they recruited guys from that pool. I think it's also worthy of noting that EOD is also one of the only voluntary jobs, one of the few like strictly voluntary jobs in the military that if you don't want to do it anymore, you could say, I'm going to take a pause here and I'm done. I mean, you couldn't do that in the middle of a mission, but you could give up your badge if you didn't feel confident or qualified anymore. And I knew a couple of the guys that did that, and I didn't lose any respect for them. In fact, I thought it was very respectful that they would do that if they lost their nerve or lost their edge. But I think another thing that the Marine Corps does, as my voice cracks and I'm 50, I think that another thing that we do that's a little bit different that I liked, I thought it was a great perspective, is we don't recruit officers to go into Marine Corps EOD. Every one of our officers in the Marine Corps EOD program was prior enlisted, that went through school as an enlisted guy, got the training through the officers that were appointed over him, and we grew our own officer pool, which, you can understand the benefits of that, where you don't have a second lieutenant in charge of a platoon full of guys that are hardcore snake eaters, and this guy is right out of school trying to tell you what to do. No, you have a little bit more of a depth and breadth of knowledge and experience before you're recruited to or volunteer to be an officer. I always like that part of the journey.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, Marines are the smallest branch. That is also true for the EOD family within the Marines. You went through in, what was it, 99?
Yeah. 99, I went through the selection process. At the time, I was an instructor for aviation ordnance. So think like, for your audience members, I put together bombs, missiles, rockets, did the maintenance, assembly, disassembly, cleaning of large gun systems, things like that. Not just for fixed wing aircraft, but we also had helicopter assets. And it was a cool job. I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought it was kind of a neat thing, but I was an E4 getting promoted to E5, and I was an instructor already. And I kind of felt like almost like I hit this glass ceiling. Now, most of the other instructors, these guys were E7 and E8. They were getting ready to retire from the military, and I got accepted to be an instructor. So when it came time for me to re-enlist, I was at the schoolhouse. And I literally saw a poster on the wall. I knew who EOD was. I knew what they did. because we had to work with them if we had some ordnance issues or whatever. But I didn't know what they did on a daily basis. So I went over to the office, scheduled an interview. It was kind of an informal one-on-one, kind of like we're having now, about what are your expectations? What do you want to get out of this? Why are you doing this? And it was a really good eye-opener to something that was new. It was extremely challenging. Every day was something different, which if anybody worked in aviation ordnance or on the flight line, everything is very segmented into a daily schedule, especially if you're on the flight line, only because, birds got to fly and you have to meet mission by a certain time of day. In EOD, you could get a call one day for a cannonball, go 3 or 4 days with nothing going on at all, and all of a sudden have 2 or 3 calls or 5 calls, and it was a roller coaster. It was always keeping me at least on my toes, and that was one of the reasons why I liked it so much.
Yeah, and you guys, especially on, like, say, the flight line, I can't imagine responding to, say, like an upside down Harrier.
Yeah.
All the things that go boom in that thing. But you became an EOD tech in kind of an interesting time. What was your first assignment?
Yeah, man, is a really good question. So I was in the EOD school on 9/11. I was there on security hold, just waiting for my security package. We had about 24 of us on security hold, but once 9/11 happened, for whatever reason, we got fast tracked and we got our security clearances like really, really quickly. So 9/11 happened. I graduated like the first week of October, and I went to an interesting unit called the Marine Corps CBIRF unit, which is an acronym. We got a million of them. This was the Chemical Biological Incident Response Force. And it was basically a response unit out of Washington, D.C. that would supply Washington, D.C. with the contingency of Marines that were ready to go into an area, post-incident. So I think like a weapon of mass destruction is released in Washington, D.C., nuclear bomb goes off, something along those lines. Our guys were trained to go in there and recover the injured. We had some of the only corpsmen in the Navy that were trained in downrange operations in a non-permissive environment. They invented some of their own tools. Like, so if you're going to airbag somebody to keep breathing for them, they developed and pioneered a canister that literally was a gas canister for your gas mask, and put that on the bag. So you're actually breathing fresh, filtered air now. So one of my first missions, to come back full circle to your question, was we helped decontaminate Senator Daschle's office of the anthrax. So it wasn't even like blowing anything up. It wasn't anything wildly sexy that you'd see in a movie about EOD technicians. It was putting on the ET level A suit and going in and literally bagging everything in the senator's office while you're doing a decontamination at the same time. It was interesting. It was a little scary. I mean, at the time, anthrax was all over the place. It was Tom Brokaw got it sent to his office. There was a lady in Connecticut named Audie Lundgren that died of secondhand contamination through the mail. The Federal Post Office downtown in D.C., something like 12 or 13 tons of mail had to be decontaminated and separated because they found out that's where it went through. So it was a little scary, but that was my first mission as an EOD tech, was a biological weapon.
Was that an explosive hazard, though, or suspected explosive hazard?
No, not whatsoever. It got delivered to his office in an envelope. Now, the backstory is the EPA contracted a company real similar to like Service Pro or Service Magic. I'm not trying to drop any names or anything. I just think that remembering that was one of the companies that they contracted, and the company couldn't handle the expectation of getting it cleaned in a certain amount of time. Mm-hmm. So our commanding officer graciously volunteered our unit, and we had about 150 Marines descend into the Capitol in Senator Daschle's office. We took up space in some of the common areas. We had a hot side and a cold side, and we were just pushing bodies through there. almost 24 hours a day. So when you think of an office, you know, and I'm sure you've probably been downtown at the Capitol or some of the Senate houses, you know, you think of an office as just one little room for that person to sit in. Well, that's not necessarily true. They have their office. Their secretary has their office. They have a common area for coffee breaks and stuff. They have the copier room. They have a room for meetings. I mean, it's not a little feat. And when you think about trying to disassemble and contain something like a Xerox machine or a Coke machine, like how do you cut that up into little pieces? Like we had Jaws of Life out there. We had these giant band saws, roto blades at these guys. And these were all young Marines really, really gung-ho to break stuff. So it's like the perfect mission.
I understand a biological or chemical hazard and you wear the SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus, like scuba, but without the underwater. It's completely closed off to the outside environment. You're breathing your own air. And it's a pretty awkward environment in there. It's also doesn't have any air conditioning.
Right.
But then another protective system we have is the bomb suit, which is a 90 or so pound, suit with, Kevlar and ceramic plating and then an astronaut helmet, but it's not protection against, biological materials. So if you had an anthrax suspicion and a explosive suspicion, did you wear them both?
Yeah, we did. We actually assisted MedEng, the company that makes the bomb suits. We assisted them with testing of the SRS-5. So the SRS-5 was the bomb suit that was made a little bit thinner. It still served to have some very strong protection against fragmentation and blast, but it was a little thinner because you had to wear a Tyvek suit underneath it. So that's basically a plastic suit, very form-fitting, almost like long johns. You would have rubber butyl gloves on, but then the helmet for that sucker got even bigger because the expectation was that you would be wearing an SCBA, the breathing pack on your back, and then you'd have the face mask on, just like a fireman. It's the same system, a Scott pack. You'd have the face mask on, but then they had to put this giant Darth helmet on top of your head that basically looked like a huge fishbowl. You know, do you remember the X-Men cartoon or the X-Men comic book where they had the guy that was Juggernaut that had the huge dome on top of his head? I felt like Juggernaut when I was wearing that thing. You looked ridiculous. You lost most of your visual acuity. You can't hear anything because you're in the suit. And now you got like zero dexterity because you're just basically a walking boulder with hands.
Yeah. A buddy of mine, another EOD tag, Izzy Nuanez, and I used to play that all the time. I remember that boom sound as just before one of those things come barreling at you.
That's right.
We lost Izzy in 2015. Yeah. But I was just wondering because the thing's just not built for comfort.
Nah.
So moving on though, so that was your introduction into EOD.
Yeah.
Talk about what it was like overseas. Yeah, we were just getting into the war on terror, and where'd you get sent?
Yeah, happily. So my time served overseas during the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was in Iraq, and in Iraq I was in Anbar, and this was 2006, 2007. So we already had the invasion of Fallujah, had the second invasion of Fallujah. Things were really, really hot at the time. I mean, the war was in full sprint mode, if you want to use a running analogy. And we were getting calls in where I was at was called Anbar. So that was Multinational Forces West. We had Ramadi, Fallujah, Habbaniyah, and I was in Habbaniyah. And Habanilla was kind of a sleepy little area. It was a military base way back in the day, World War II. The British used it as a runway, and that area was smoking hot. There was a lot of locations, especially Ramadi and Fallujah, that would get a lot of false IED calls. So the bad guys would make something that looked like an IED or make something that looked like a roadside bomb to lure the guys in, usually for an ambush, small arms fire, things like that. It was the opposite for me. In Habanilla, we were getting 12 to 15 calls a day for legitimate improvised explosive devices, roadside bombs, booby trap cars, car bombs. We had many instances of having both human and animal bodies, cadavers, stuffed with explosives, booby trapped houses. I mean, there was, I think there's only maybe I could count on one hand the amount of calls that we got where it wound up being just a suspicious package. It wasn't even a bomb, but the rest of the time we were running, 24, 48 hours nonstop. It was it was a wild environment.
You kind of did that red team, blue team thing where you alternate, right?
Yeah.
48 on, 48 off.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a high up tempo.
Yeah, man. It was, I've said this before, that after the 48 hours of running, 30 calls, 40 calls, whatever, you're not done yet. When you get back to base or back to your fob area, we just happened to live in this bombed out, basically strip mall. That was where we lived at. When you got back there, you'd crash out for a little bit. I'd sleep for 5 or 6 hours, but then we had 2 days that we didn't have 2 days off. We had 2 days to reconstitute, build the charges, get prepared for the next missions, do some intel analyzing, talk to the Combat Operations Center to see if there was new intel out there, what the missions look like. It wasn't like we had, 2 days on and then we're at the swimming pool with beers, which more than anybody else, that's just not what it was like. And I think truly, if those 2 days would have been 2 days downtime, I think it would probably have been a bad thing. And I've said this before, you'd lose a certain amount of your edge. You probably become complacent to a certain extent. Even 48 hours on the battlefield doesn't sound like a long time, but it's a lifetime when you're talking about tactics, procedures, understanding, who the bad guys are in the environment. And we always have constant communication between me and the other team leaders and even other FOBs as to what was going on.
And a lot of people don't realize this, but this was really the early days of the U.S. and being introduced to IEDs, because ordnance, EOD, ordnance is in our name. That's our bread and butter. Before the war on terror, it was munitions, shot, dropped, launched, thrown, things that were manufactured that were known quantities, even though there are so many of them out there. IEDs were a whole nother animal, and limited only by the bomb maker's creativity. And now we're getting thrown into something that's in our wheelhouse, but you were working on something that it could have been anywhere, anything. You were talking about that. They were putting IEDs into fresh concrete curbs.
Yeah.
And making EFPs, those explosively formed penetrators, and cadavers. A dead dog lying on the roadkill on the side of the road. It could have been an IED.
Yeah, we had more than one incident where they would kill a local national and use a human body that they stuffed with explosives on a couple instances. So they were really, psychologically, I don't know if they were trying to psychologically play games with us. I think these were more of opportunistic type packages that they could put explosives in. But psychologically, it takes a toll. I mean, when you find out, I found out one call that we got was a dead guy on the side of the road. He was stuffed with Simtex and explosives. And it wound up being a really, really well-regarded figure in the community. He was a teacher. I mean, what kind of animal? And they're really, it's savagery is what it is. What kind of savage kills a teacher and stuffs them with explosives so they could lure people in because they're doing the right moral thing to try to help this person, only to turn around and blow them up? I mean, that's savagery, dude. That people, when people think that there's not evil in this world, I looked at that specific example and I could tell you there's real evil in the world.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Tell me about the incident in which you were injured.
Yeah, this was, we both happened to have a commonality. I was blown up in December 11th in 2006. We were on I use the word with a little reticence. We're on a routine mission. Basically the infantry guys that were out in the area, they found an enemy's weapons cache. That's basically a whole bunch of RPGs, some grenades. I think they found some small arms. So our mission was to drive out there and pick it up, bring it to a safe area, and go blow it up, go make it go away. And this was down an unimproved road. It was down a dirt road. If anybody's familiar with Route Karma and Twins in Habania, Anbar area, it was a really dangerous place because it was all dirt roads. It was parallel to a date farm. So the guy that I replaced, his name was Dan Fetter. The guy that I replaced told me, hey, going down this road, make sure you lead with your vehicle first, because your vehicle, I was in one of those big MRAPs. I think it's the nomenclature for the vehicle. I can't remember proper. But we're in that vehicle. We took the lead, and I was smoking inside of the truck. I think statute of limitations were over on that one. Nobody's going to give you a hard time about that. But that's what you do. You smoke cigarettes, you chew a lot of tobacco. And I was flicking the cigarette out of the door, and I looked down the street a little bit, and there's some potholes up there. And I yelled into the truck, because those things are just so darn loud. I yelled into the truck to the guys to hold on because it's going to get bumpy in here. And it was like the worst foreshadowing, because like literally a second later or a millisecond, the moment I closed my door, we got blown up. And it was two relatively big pieces of ordnance, 155s that were chained together. One blew up under my seat and one blew up in the seat behind me. So it was like almost an ambulance seat that was facing backwards. And I hit my head on the roof of that vehicle so hard that I broke my helmet into two pieces. My corpsman in the back, he took a robot, the control unit for the robot. Looks like it's like a big hardened briefcase. Doc, he took that to the face, busted his face up pretty good. We had a couple guys in there because when a vehicle gets blown up, nothing stays in place. I mean, we had grenades flying all over the place. I mean, it was a hot mess. But fortunately, we were able to wake up from that. We all got knocked out, probably for the better part of 20, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Got knocked out. I came to the voice of my security guy in my ear, kind of checking in to see how we were doing. And the second part of that, not getting blown up, the getting blown up part shook me, but it wasn't what I expected. Maybe I didn't know what to expect, frankly. The second part of that mission was the part that sucked the most. And that was we had been training with our security guys that if our truck, the EOD truck, gets blown up and we're ambulatory, then we got to jump out of the truck and search for secondary IEDs. So for your audience that isn't familiar with this type of tactic, the bad guys would plant a bomb, they would blow up a truck, and then when their partners, when their team came in to rescue them, they would have a second bomb there and blow them up. So our protocol was the EOD guys get out of the vehicle, search the area, secure the area. And because they had gotten so proficient with that tactic, man, that scared the holy hell out of me. I'll be, totally transparent with you, brother. That was the scariest moment in my life, was searching for a secondary, because they've been doing it so often with so much so much effectiveness. I think what stopped them potentially from doing that, and we never did find one, but we did have the infantry guys there by that time, and they looked like they were ready to shoot somebody in the face. They were really, really pissed off. They were not going to get our support. They had to call on for a follow-up mission. They're like, you guys are fine. We still have to camp out here in the middle of this stupid date grove and wait for another EOD team, which is notoriously slow. Sorry I got blown up, guys. There's not much I can do for you.
Yeah, it's just like the infantry would be pissed off that you got blown up before dealing with their problem.
Yeah.
You hit the ceiling, hit the roof of this truck. And just for those who don't know, the MRAP, these things are like twice the size of a armored truck. And they're made out of like solid pieces of steel, and they have these boat hull shaped bottoms to direct the blast, and even the wheels are designed to shear off rather than go with the blast and take the truck with the blast. And what happened? What happened to the truck, and how? What kind of injuries did you sustain?
The 2 tires on the truck that were closest to the blast must have been turned into dust, because we didn't find a single bit or piece from those things. The truck itself, for some gravity to understand how big this truck is, it weighs 33,000 pounds. That's if you want to do the math real quick, 15, 16 tons, I think, somewhere around there. And it picked the truck up and it moved it off to the side of the road by probably the better part of like 10 yards. So about 25, 30 feet. And when I opened up the door to the vehicle, which on a normal day, you would step up 2 steps to get into the truck because it's relatively elevated. You're about 6 to 8 feet off the ground. Well, when I opened up my truck after the explosion happened, my door like touched the ground. Because the wheels on my side were gone. We were halfway in, halfway out of these holes. So my job just to step out of the truck got a whole lot easier. Now, as far as injuries were concerned, I got a traumatic brain injury. So that's basically diagnosed that if you passed out for a certain amount of time or you got swung in your brain, there's some cognitive challenges that go with it, memory challenges. I had word finding issues. I had a real hard time with reading. Also. But then also I got, because you're sitting on the chair and all of a sudden you have this mass momentum move through your seat, I compressed my spine. I used to actually be 6 feet tall. But now I'm just a little bit short of 5'11" because of the spinal compression. And then some internal injuries. The blast wave moves twice as proficiently through liquid. It's just physics. So I got some internal injuries, some internal micro tears and things like that in my guts. That's still a challenge. But after I came to, I was ambulatory. I had all my senses, didn't lose any body parts. So, I mean, shit, man. I got off easy as far as I'm concerned.
Why I asked was because you're a couple inches shorter. You hit your head so hard you broke a Kevlar helmet. And then they say, hey, can you go look around for another IED before we send anybody in to save you? Can you just check real quick?
Yeah. You mind? just poke around a little bit there, Gunny. I'm sure you don't mind whatsoever.
The SOP on that is if an EOD tech goes down, like if you're making the long walk, the rest of the team is supposed to clear a safe path for, say, medics to go in. And I got blown up, lost my eyes, but I was ambulatory. And I started walking around like, I don't want anybody coming into this danger zone, but I'm doing this zombie walk around the battlefield and I have no idea where the truck is. So I've been making it harder, like I've been making them chase me. But anyways, so that's you get some of the most immediate injuries there, and I think that was the career-ending blast, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it, dude. After that, I did get medevaced. I got medevaced out to Balad, and I was there. Um, Honestly, I don't remember exactly how many days I was there. It's probably the better part of 3 or 4 days, and I got to talk to my guys. I got to talk to my leadership, and basically I was like, screw this, I'm not going home. They wanted to send me to Germany for some further tests and evaluation, but I was a gunnery sergeant. I wanted to be a leader to my Marines, even if if that meant I couldn't leave the wire or whatever. And they were really, really adamant about sending me to Germany. So I did what a Marine Corps gunnery sergeant does: is I ran away. I went AWOL and found a helicopter. I got myself on the muster and flew away back to Fallujah and stayed at Fallujah. I got a hand slap for that one. It probably could have been a little bit worse, but I got a hand slap for that one, and basically stayed there and helped run operations until the end of that deployment. And proud to say, on that deployment, our deployment detachment, we didn't lose a single guy. Nobody got killed. We did get some injuries, but nobody got killed. And that was one of the very first deployments since the IED focus was really heavy. That we had 100% survival rate.
I was in Afghanistan at the time and a Navy cook. So, but in hindsight,
Yeah.
do you think maybe it was wise for a guy who's that concussed to go back to work?
Hell no. No, God, no, not at all. It was probably a terrible idea, but I wouldn't change it any bit of it for the world. I mean, I got some leftover frustration and pains, but I can't meet a single EOD guy or a grunt that their body isn't busted up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes with the territory.
What were the more longer lasting effects? Like when you came home and really things started to settle down and you would really be able to take stock of what was happening. Tell me what happened moving forward.
Is probably more than anything else my personality change and temperament. When you're going that fast in this fight or flight response mode for such a long time, there has been noticed and papers written about this chemical shift that you have in your brain where you literally rewire yourself to be able to deal with this fight or flight on such a regular and consistent basis. So things like hypervigilance, attention to detail, aggressiveness, qualities that you want to have on the battlefield, you can't just turn those off like a switch. And when you get home and you go from 20 missions in 2 days to go find the box of breakfast cereal, which is so low stress that your body doesn't know mentally, it doesn't know how to process that. So you would have, I'm speaking in general terms. This is my own personal experience. I had a really hard time with frustration when it came to people being slow, people being mediocre, having to wait in line. You don't develop a God complex. At least I didn't when I was out there in running operations. But I did develop an over-aggressive sense of urgency. Like if you're not working for me right now, you're working against me. And that pissed me off to no end. So it was a lot of therapies that I had to go through to kind of deal with that stuff. The physical stuff, I could take medications for nerve pain, medications for, I get a lot of muscle like rigidity and stuff like that from the nervous system injury on my spinal cord. But it was actually the psychological change and the shift that I had made that I've gone through a lot of therapies to try to deal with.
Yeah, you just get the uppers to help you wake up, the downers to help you go back to sleep. You got all the pain meds and maybe a little vodka to smooth it all out. Yeah, it's tough. So, how did you deal with it? How did you recognize that there was something wrong, or that it wasn't working?
It was honestly, it wasn't me that recognized it. I felt those emotions, but at the same time, I also felt like they were normal now. Like I normalized hyper aggressive behavior. It was just the person that I was. So it wasn't something that I was trying to control or if you will, make better. It was my wife really, and we had been together since EOD school. So she'd seen me from training all the way through operations, all the way to this point in my life. And she saw a noticeable difference. And she's the one that said, hey, you need to go get some help. You need to either go to the VA or go find some psychiatrists or some talk therapy or whatever. And it was really a journey that she started by honestly, by having the intestinal fortitude to tell her husband that he's messed up. That's not a real easy thing to do. And I give her a lot of credit for that because she really kicked that journey off for me. So I tried with the VA. The VA in 2007 and 2008 is not what the VA is now in 2025. They had a lot of challenges. They weren't ready, nor were they prepared to deal with this type of level of post-traumatic stress in such a high quantity too. Considering the amount of forces we had overseas. So I had really good private insurance with the company I was at. So I found a former Navy psychiatrist, psychologist. I don't know the difference. Sat down and did a lot of talk therapy with him. I've done meditation. I've done exposure therapy, which is basically like you tell the same story over and over again of your trauma. And it's supposed to basically numb you to that. I've done surf therapy. I've done nature therapy, done race therapy with you. So I've tried, dude, every modality I could possibly think of because I'm so aggressive about wanting to be the best version of me that I could be. But the one thing that I found, and it's coming back full circle, is I've only been doing it about a year and a half, 2 years, and that's art. Is being able to express myself through the visual arts, emotions that I couldn't otherwise articulate or explain to people. It's hard to explain to people what rage feels like. Like you get this really, really intense feeling in your core and you want to just Hulk smash everything. But I know I can't do that, although sometimes I'd like to. So I started capturing it on a canvas. And I did one and then another and then another. And I never really thought really twice about it until a friend of mine was like, dude, you should show these off online. I didn't have a social media presence at the time. So I opened up a Facebook account and I started sharing these emotional paintings that I was doing. And they really resonated with guys and girls. Female military members, veterans, also saw some real value in them. But doing those paintings, dude, was like going right back into that kind of dark rabbit hole. So I'm a huge dog fan. I love dogs. I love all animals, love pets, but I've been a dog guy my entire life. And a friend of mine asked me to paint his dog. You might know Bobby Klepper. He was a bomb tech for the police department, and he's got a service dog, and I painted his dog, and it turned out pretty good. It didn't look like a 5-year-old with fingerprint. And then I took a couple art classes, and here I am. It's been about 18 months. I've been in some gallery shows. I've done dozens of commissions. I've actually got a movie coming out soon that I've got a small role in, and I've got a painting in. In fact, behind me is the painting that's in the movie. It's a very Caravaggio style guy. Look like he's about to Hulk out and kill somebody. It's a pretty powerful painting.
And now, after all the things that you've tried, what is it about painting that you think it works for you?
I like all of the aspects of it from the moment that I assemble my tools, because it's not just a brush and some paint. There's some chemistry that goes into painting. So you have to have the right tools. You have to prepare the canvas. There's like a very deliberate, almost EOD, like when you set up a shot or when you're doing diagnosis on IED or whatever. It's very structured. Do this to get to this, to get to this, to get to this. And if one of those steps is taken out of the equation, you could wind up with a failure on your hands in a lot of different ways. So I like the rigidity of it, but also at the same time, the level of detail, attention to detail that you have in the job as an EOD technician. Because our old favorite saying is what, initial success or total failure. You kind of have to have that also when you're doing an oil painting. Pencils are a little bit more forgiving because you have an eraser. It's just being very deliberate and in the moment. It's very Zen-like to me, that I can control with something that is very emotional and really kind of sometimes difficult for me. I can control the narrative and show people what that feels like. And when people start connecting to that and understanding now, this is what a lot of veterans feel like, or people even just with trauma. This is what trauma feels like, and they can connect to that. That's a win for me. That's like defeating the enemy's IED or taking some weapons out of their hands. It's now being able to educate the public with a little bit more insight about the feelings of trauma.
I said it right in the introduction that, the men, we're builders, we're doers, we're fixers. We need a project. We need something to do. We need something to work on and to keep our mind occupied, a puzzle or something to solve. At least we need forward motion. And when we feel stuck with an unsolvable problem, that's one of the most difficult, most awful feelings. And to have something creative, something constructive to do is sometimes one of the most therapeutic things you can do. It doesn't matter the outlet. In the middle of my second bout with death and, being thrown into not just complete darkness, but then complete silence, I went back to cooking and I started making fudge. So, of course, kind of like you, I kind of take it to the extreme and started a whole fudge company out of it. And now you're painting. And one of the things I've noticed is that you're really into it. You really enjoy it. You really get into the descriptions on social media. It sounds like you're having fun. Dude. And then the other thing I've noticed is that you become pretty prolific. You're just doing it a lot. So tell me what's going on with Little Dog Art Studios, and what do you got going right now?
I'm working on a couple different projects right now. I really like turning things out in threes and making series. I've done that before with bomb suit helmets. I did it early on when I started painting, dropping a guy in a bomb suit in a classical painting like Starry Night or The Scream by Edward Munch, or Sunday Afternoon in the Park by Degas, the guy with the pointillism. I really enjoyed doing series, and those have been really, really well received because they tell a little bit more of a broader story, I think, in a series than just one painting alone. But one of the things that I'm working on and I'd really like to get into is a place called the Artist Gallery, ARDEST. I think it's probably a play on words. And they're downtown in Houston here. And what I'd like to showcase, and maybe they'll hear this, I'm definitely going to send it to them, is I'd really like to showcase my journey from my very first painting of how I started out over the past 18 months and to where I'm at now. Because I've had, and I'm really blessed through Christ to have this level of success. I've had opportunities to be in galleries, and I've developed a following, and I've gotten commissions, and I've got this movie project now that I'm fortunate to have been a part of. I think it'd be really cool for somebody to experience, like, this is what dedication looks like. And it's not just dedication in the arts, but this is what dedication looks like. Waking up every day, practicing something you're passionate about, using it as a platform or a voice to express for an underserved group of people, people in, that have been through trauma. So maybe that is the next thing on my plate. but I'm always looking for new creative challenges. I've just recently started doing graphite, so that's like pencil drawings and stuff. And I'm trying really, really hard to get to the level of hyperrealism with a little bit of a twist. I'd like to do more surrealism than hyperrealism. I think drawing a dog or a cat or a person and making it look like a photo is, God, that's wildly, wildly, disciplined and certainly talented. But I'd like to do it with a little bit of a different edge and make it a little bit more surreal. A dog wearing a bomb suit, or things like that would be a lot of fun for me.
I haven't, of course, been able to see it, but I imagine this isn't exactly something somebody would want to put in their Airbnb. It's kind of pretty niche, right? It's what you're doing though. It's not only therapeutic for yourself, but you're like you said, you're developing this community, and you're sharing with others, and others, you're helping others express, or at least get in tune and touch with some otherwise buried emotions. It seems like it really unlocked something pretty incredible.
I've got a really cool story about that. So one of the pieces that I did was called War Dreams. And it was this guy thrashing around in his bed. He was clearly either scared or waking up from a nightmare. And it was a really, really intense emotional piece. And I had a young woman get a hold of me when I posted it up on social media. She said, "Hey, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I had some sexual trauma in the military, and I really resonated with this painting." And I said, "You know what? You deserve to have your own painting. Let me do one of a woman." And I did this one of this very, very similar. It was monochromatic. This woman with these two giant broadswords, and she had this wild look on her face of aggression and like screw around and find out type of look on her face. And she's got these big broadswords, and I was like, and I presented it to her. I said, "This is you slashing through all the demons and cutting through all the bullshit that you had to deal with through in your career," because she was having a breakthrough moment where she was finally like, she doesn't need to be a hermit. She doesn't need to be an alcoholic. She's able to deal and process, but it's going to take work. But you got to approach it with a warrior mentality of never quit, never surrender. Always shoulder into an extreme challenge like that. And she's not the only one. I've done commissions now for guys. One here recently I did was a photo taken of the guy's very last EOD call before he had to retire, which was an honor to me. That was huge, man. You trust me with that memory in your life to create it as art is a huge, man. I'm very proud that people will trust me with their memories like that. It's really, really cool.
And you're also doing dogs.
Yeah. So to temper all of the really intense stuff is I do these anthropomorphic dogs, right? I take a real dog breed, but I turn them into human characters. So the very first one that I did was I think it was a Great Dane sitting at a table eating spaghetti. And in the background is a picture of the Great Dane on the wall as a puppy sitting at the same table eating spaghetti. And it was called Growing Up. It's just everybody experiences dogs in a very short amount of time span in their human life, where dogs are like, their whole life is very short, and it's with you. And that one actually just won a People's Choice Award. Happy to say. And then that one turned into my German Shepherd as a soda jerk, sitting at a counter getting ready to serve you a soda. And in the background is a menu of the different soda flavors. So there's beef, chicken, shoes, crusty bone or something like that. And I try to evoke more of a positive emotional response with these paintings because the other ones that I have are so dark. It's also psychologically beneficial for me, especially when I've been doing some dark stuff, is to paint a happy dog and make them fun.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you have, say, your own character, creation like a mutt or some one dog that you come back to, like that's your guy. Yeah, I asked because my dad was a big fan of this artist Aldo Luongo,
Okay.
and he painted this older gentleman who was kind of an amalgam of his own dad, kind of how he imagined himself when he was older. And he put him into a lot of his paintings, and they're really incredible. And actually, the guy ended up kind of really looking like his own, you know, character in his paintings.
Oh,
But
wow.
I was wondering if that was something that you might have.
I do. In fact, my studio, Little Dog Art Studios, is named after my own dog. I have two American bulldogs. One is a big, they're both female. One is big, 70 pounds, lazy. She loves the couch. She eats too much. If she could watch TV all day, she would. My other dog, the little dog, she's 55 pounds of pure muscle. She's only about maybe 24 inches tall. She's got a cleft lip, a broken ear, a broken tail, skin issues, and she's relatively aggressive. She stands patrolling out my backyard. We got a big like privacy fence around her property. There is literally a trail worn into the ground where she makes her rounds around the interior perimeter of the fence. You might have just heard her barking at me. She's like, I don't like it when you talk about me, Dad. She's got because of her cleft palate, she's got this like overbite and like set of teeth on her like a daggone gargoyle. But she is to me, like I'm the world to her, and she just thinks the world of me. And she's actually my mascot. She's my muse. She's one of my first dogs I painted. I painted her again here recently. But when people see the painting of her, they're like, what's wrong with that dog? Well, yeah, man, that's my dog. She's a little busted up, but she's got all the character in the world.
It sounds like she's on mission. She's your century. So what's next? What are you excited about? What do you got coming up?
I think one of my favorite things to do is as I've done about maybe a half a dozen of these shows where I do a live painting demonstration, and it takes a long time. So I do these painting demonstrations at things like fundraisers. I've done them at business openings. I've done them at parties, and I show up with a canvas and a travel easel, and I make a painting in front of people. And most of the time it's fun. It's upbeat. It's silly. The last one I did was at the opening for a wine bar here in Houston that was also raising money for a dog charity. So they found me online. They're like, yeah, we need to have this guy come paint. Well, the next big event is the Marine Corps Ball in November. And I've been invited to the largest one in Houston. I think they're at like 1,200 tickets. And I'm going to be doing a live painting demonstration. But I'm not doing the normal Marine Corps stuff. Most guys will paint Iwo Jima or, something along the lines of something historical for the Marine Corps. I'm doing a little bit different and actually painting the building that the Marine Corps was founded in, which was a bar. How apropos.
Awesome. The live demonstration. I once, I think it was the concert or there's the beginning. It was the opening for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and this guy was up on a stage like it was a rock star, and there was this huge canvas like the size of the side of a building, and he had these buckets, and he just threw buckets of paint at this thing, and there'd be a splash this way, a splash that way, and all of a sudden, it was Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, man.
That was incredible.
I've seen them do that before, but they do it a little bit differently. At the end, there's a painting there, and you can barely tell what it is. It looks like something Jackson Pollock threw together. And then they spin it and turn it upside down, And it's like, bam, there's Hendrix or Osborne or a horse or a friggin' giraffe. It's like, not only did you paint something beautiful, but you did it upside down. You're like screwing with my brain the entire time. That's cool. Yeah, most of my paintings, when I do these live shows, are 16 by 20 inches. I'm not to the point yet where I could afford that much money and paint to throw around. That's got to be an expensive proposition. No, I like doing a 16 by 20, and generally by the time I'm done with the painting at the event, if it's a charity, I offer it up to the charity for them to auction it off. Sometimes I have silent auction throughout the entire event that people could buy the work, and then I donate the proceeds to whatever the charity is. Because at those events, I pick up so many new customers and opportunities to meet new people that it's totally worth it for me as a business proposition.
Speaking of charities and therapeutic things for the warrior, we'll get a little bit short on time, but right after I was injured, I don't remember exactly when, but it wasn't too long after I was injured, there was a brand new retreat that opened up right in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And I think I was maybe the very first Warrior PATHH program, like participant, like number one going through this. And it was absolutely incredible. There were these special operators, rangers, SEALs, Green Berets, and then there was me. Actually, I didn't feel like I'd qualified as broken enough, but it was incredible because we did stuff like transcendental meditation every morning and evening. And I know you did this program also not too long ago.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if you want to talk a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, man, I'd love to. That program right there, out of all of the different types of programs, therapies that I've gone through, modalities of different types of meditation, nature therapy, equine therapy, PATHH was different. And the reason why it was different to me was it wasn't all like yoga and granola and patchouli oil and like crystals. What they did that I thought was relatively new concept, and it might not be, I don't know, was basically they took the training that we were given in the military and they repurposed it so you could take those things like being hypervigilant, attention to detail, all of the things that has now been classified as post-traumatic stress, which is BS. It's just basically you take those things that you're struggling with and they show you how to apply them to your life now that as a civilian, as a father, as a husband, as a person of the community, a member of your church. Like, how do you take those things that you were trained to, those standards, and now you reapply them in your life? And that literally, dude, that flipped a switch with me because I knew I had these things, this box of tools, practices available to me that I used in the military to keep me alive, that were valuable. The military spent millions of dollars on training me this way. It took almost 20 years for somebody to show me that I could still use those skills, but use them in as a positive way now. It was also a great opportunity to dump and offload a lot of the emotional garbage and baggage, if you will, that I was carrying with me. In the Marine Corps EOD program earlier, you were talking about how small it was. We only had about 350 Marine Corps EOD technicians across the entire Marine Corps. And we lost exactly 50 down to the last guy, exactly 50 through the entire war. Well, dude, that's a huge segment of the population if you're only talking about 350 guys. So I knew of these guys. A lot of them were dear friends of mine. I lost 2 partners. I lost my study partner and one of my best friends from EOD school because I was a little bit more senior in rank. I put guys into the program and I did their interview and I did their, training to get them to EOD school, lost some of them. So it was like a lot of emotional, I call it survivor's guilt because that's what I had. Like I was no better than any of these guys. I don't know why I was spared. And that was that kind of crap that I was living with every day. Like, why wasn't it me? Well, who knows? You'll never know why it wasn't you. God one day will tell me, we had a purpose for you. This is why you stayed alive. Um, but I left that behind. I left it in the labyrinth. And literally, as I was walking out of the labyrinth, there was another Marine behind me, another EOD guy. He's like, Tim, when you were leaving the labyrinth, and he told me this one-on-one, quiet time. He's like, dude, I literally saw your body like change. You stood taller. You were walking with more confidence. You look like you left a weight behind. And any other time until I was going through the PATHH program, talking about the guys that we lost and remembering certain names and dudes that I loved a lot, I would have been in tears by now. But I know I left that behind. That doesn't mean I don't honor their life and their friendship and the love that we had for each other. Those guys were awesome. But I also know that I don't have to live with this guilt for the rest of my life because it's not helping anybody. It's clearly not helping them. It's not helping me in a day-to-day. It's not helping my wife. I need to step up and take care of myself to be the best version of the person I could be for the people that I love. And that's what I got. I think that resonated the most through that program was self-care, and that it's okay to do it. It's okay to ask for help. Even the toughest guys, I had a Green Beret in my class. I had 2 special operations guys from overseas. Most of the rest were EOD guys. And we shared some really, really intense stories together about battle and conflict. And these guys were hardcore warriors, but they were also modest and didn't have a problem asking for help. Some of them took me 17 years to go through that program because it's been around about that long, but I finally got it. And dude, it was a life changer.
Well, it seems like you've definitely learned your lesson well and putting it into practice because you're doing an excellent job. It sounds like you've found a way to work through those demons and share the experience with others. So,
appreciate that.
Very quickly, we'll run through our final segment. It's called the Countdown to Impact. Now, this is 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person who have all made an impact in your life.
The Bible, number 1. I try everything I could do to live by it. I honestly do. And it took me all the way up until the time that I was in PATHH to be honest with myself that I've never sat down and read the entire Bible cover to cover, which is something that I have on my list to do this year. And I'm on pace to read the entire Bible cover to cover, all the stories, the entire thing. The second book was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was, if you don't know the book, you look like you know the book. It was a guy that was a Holocaust survivor. Not only was he a Holocaust survivor, but he lost his entire family. And throughout the entire book, he talks about his trials and tribulations, the horror of war, and obviously of the Holocaust. And probably the third book is one of the biographies that I read in college about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. They're both on the same. They're both on the same plateau to me because these guys were absolute warriors. George Washington was a badass. And anybody who's never read about George Washington, he used to literally ride into the middle of the British, jump off of his horse, and start poking people with a sword. Shot like 2 or 3 times through his jacket, through his hat. And then Abraham Lincoln, I mean, the obvious thing is, leading the United States through this righteous civil war to free people and give people life, to literally free the slaves and unify our country as a holistic country, not segregated by different types of beliefs in government and different types of human rights issues, but to actually congeal our government and our people. It was absolutely amazing. You said what was number 2? Was those quotes?
2 quotes.
All right. So one was it's attributed to Roosevelt, I think. And the quote, something goes like this: you'd be amazed at what you could have done if nobody wants to take credit. and I'm paraphrasing, but basically team mentality is of that. If nobody really cares about the glory and about the honor and about the medals, and you all are rowing on this, at the same time, and you're going to have amazing progress forward and traction. And then the other one is one that we've all lived, and that's Mike Tyson's quote: "Everybody's got a plan until they're punched in the face." And then you better have a contingency plan. You better have a secondary contingency plan. You better have a 2 Bravo, a 3 Bravo, whatever. And then the last one is a person that's influenced me. Was that right?
That's correct.
Oh, God. I don't want to sound like I'm proselytizing, but it would have to be Jesus. I mean, he's the perfect being. He was peaceful. He was loving. He was charitable, but he was also had a certain moral compass and values that he stuck to. And if you didn't believe in the path that he was taking in righteous ways to advance humanity, to help people, to forgive people from their shortcomings, I think we could learn a lot, even if you're not Christian, if you're Buddhist, Muslim, Jewish, whatever. Jesus Christ as a figure, as a man, the teachings that he has have honestly and obviously transcended time. But I think they're absolutely characteristic of something that we could take on a daily basis, even if it's just one of those characteristics, trying to work on that every day, whether it be generosity or kindness or love or compassion. We could really make a change towards the better if everybody just took on just a little bit, just a little positivity or a little grace. I think it would go a long way right now, dude. I think humankind, not just America or other countries, I think humankind needs to re-embrace compassion for each other.
Tim, what does living a life of impact mean to you?
I've had a mantra my whole life to not say no, especially to opportunities, even challenges that might not sound so sexy at the beginning or even fun. But living a life of impact to me is taking on those challenges, trying to make myself a better person, learning as much as I can, reading as much as I can, education through experience. The impact part is being able to share that, whether it's through my art, through raising my sons, the leadership I have with my family, with my coworkers, with strangers on a daily basis. I feel like if you just show up and do some hard things, that's going to be, you're going to garner enough impact from people watching you do it. Even if it's just one or two people are like, wow, that guy can do that stuff. I could probably do that stuff too. And if it just pushes one person to make themselves better or to challenge themselves, dude, I did my job. That makes me really, really happy.
Never quit. Keep trying. Keep showing up, right?
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, if anybody wants to find out more about you, your art, what you're into, your fundraising efforts, all that, where do they go? Where do they find you?
You go to the World Wide Web, littledogartstudios.art. Also look for me in the movie The Beast of Trinity, Texas. I believe it's going to be released to theaters on September 6th. If not, just get on the YouTubes or the Googles. The trailer's out and live. And guys, it looks freaking amazing.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your experiences, and sharing your art with the Disruptor Nation. Really appreciate you having on.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. It's my pleasure. Much love.
All right, Disruptors, thank you so much for joining us again. I really appreciate you sharing your time with me and today's guest, Tim Colomer. And if you haven't already, please, to get this story like Tim's out to a broader audience, all I need you to do is like, share, subscribe. Before you go, open up another tab in your browser and put in littledogartstudios.art into it. Open that up. You don't have to explore it just yet. Just have it open. Do that right now. Go. Thank you once more. Until next time, race for impact.